You know, we got pirates in our country, and the pirate ship is the Palace of Westminster. So I decided to write this book, and actually it wrote itself. I'm supposed to launch it in Manchester next Thursday. Now, why did I choose Manchester? Could it have had anything to do with Hazel Blears? Surely not. But actually, because I'm a fast writer and I did it in 10 weeks, its actual factual launch is here in Appledore. And you don't have to buy it, but I'm incredibly proud of it because I think it tells the truth. And wherever I go in the country, people say, we had no idea that our MPs were up to it. Now I'm going to give you my sadness. My sadness is that I had a better title. It's actually called, I'm allowed to promote it, aren't I? Yes. I haven't done until tonight. It's actually called The Very British Revolution, because that's what it is. But I had a better title for it, which the publishers vetoed. I wanted to call it Swindler's List. They said it was too jokey. I said, you've either got to laugh or to cry, and you do both. So to get round them, I put a poem in the front, which I called Swindler's List. This is its first ever publication. See what you think. I wish I had my own duck house, redacted and anonymous. A shaded pool where ducks could float, a pond, a river, or a moat. A place unto the manor born, where moles would not uproot the lawn. I was not born to privilege, but loitered at the water's edge and played the honourable member from January to December. I wish to thank the voters' sense for choosing me at their expense. On their behalf I did my best, including things they never guessed. Though my accomplishments were zero, in fiddling I was next to Nero. I was a self-philanthropist, master of the John Lewis list. I had a profitable innings and duly pocketed the winnings. The subsidies, the perks, the pay, the petty cash, the ACA, the Tudor beams, the chandeliers, the bills for swimming pool repairs, the hanging plants, the trouser press. Nothing exceeded like excess. The whirlpool bath, the horse manure, whiter than white, purer than pure. And so it was until, alas, the MP's scandals came to pass. I was your honourable friend. A pity that it had to end. And then, to avoid the sneers of Mr. Paxman, I wrote a cheque and sent it to the taxman. In my defence, it is very difficult to find a rhyme for taxman. And wherever I go around the country, I find that people are talking about this. It has engaged us in politics, as nothing has, not even the war in Iraq. So I find it useful and necessary to preach to the converted and tell you what I think, because I was, surprisingly, and it was none of my doing, I was an MP for 4 years. I was approached in April 1997 to stand against, well, you probably never heard of Neil Hamilton. You certainly heard of Christine, didn't you? Huh? I'd never heard of Christine till then, but I sure found out. And they were looking for somebody non-party political to stand against Neil, and as it turned out, Christine. And the first person they had in mind was my good friend Terry Waite, the former Beirut hostage, who comes from Style in the Tatton constituency. And he turned it down, apparently, on the very good grounds that he had already served 1 4-year term as a hostage. And you can guess the rest. I had the time of my life in some ways. In Cheshire it was wonderful. I represented some great people. In Westminster, I had my doubts. I'm an old soldier. I was a very bad old soldier. But in those days, when you were 18, you had to do not 1 but 2 gap years. It was called national service. And that's why I found the first of life's hurdles to fall at. It was called the WOSB, the War Office Selection Board. The same test that the Royal Princes Harry and William so easily and unsurprisingly passed 2 years ago. Well, I failed mine, didn't I? I failed mine because I failed the intelligence test. And the presiding brigadier, who was suspicious, ordered me to take it again, and I failed it again. And I didn't mind until I saw the officers who passed, and I found them thick as two planks. And I'll tell you, because I'm going to talk a lot about the military, it sounds political, but it's going to get military, that the army of today is so much better than the army I served in, not least because it no longer has Private 233989141 Bell-M serving in it. And I wasn't the only one who failed. Another who failed was Tam Dalyell, the former father of the house, whose ancestor, General Sir Tam Dalyell, had founded Scotland's senior cavalry regiment, the Royal Scots Greys, in 1660-something. So old Tam was a shoo-in for a commission until he lost a tank on manoeuvres. Now, tanks were harder to lose in those days, but it was still a considerable achievement. And in this book, the book that I'm not promoting, you may have noticed the rival book has been written by the Daily Telegraph authors, and I pay tribute here and now to the Telegraph, which has done a very sound, regular, fair job across both sides of the house. It's a classic case of good journalism, and I cannot think of a better justified example of checkbook journalism than this in the public interest. But in the last few days, it has come out that the motivation for putting this in the public domain came in part from two serving soldiers who had been moonlighting and were serving as security guards on the stationery office when the House of Commons authorities were editing, or as they say, redacting the MP's expenses. And if you followed the redactions which were published on a Black Thursday in June, every single serious case of malpractice, from the flipping of homes to the false mortgages to the Duck Island and all the rest of it, none of it would have been in the public domain. And I didn't know at the time about the military input into this, but I have a whole chapter here which started off by being, I thought, peripheral and is now absolutely central. If we are going to hold our government and our politicians to account, we have to understand whom they put in harm's way and what armaments and protection they procure. And what is a serving soldier going to think when he discovers that one of New Labour's 6 Secretaries of Defence in 12 years had charged the House of Commons, us, the taxpayer, £12,000 in 4 years for petty cash? Not a single receipt required. For the first time in our lives, the gravy train is out of the tunnel and clear for all of us to see.